It's This Week in X, presented by Crush and Comics for Children of the Atom #4, out on the 9th of June, 2021. And we are doing a buy or skip episode about this comic book, starting with Tyler. Buy or skip?
Buy. But I'm this close to saying skip.
Ooh. Harry, buy or skip?
Buy if you've liked it so far, but I hope it picks up soon.
Fariha, buy or skip?
I've been saying skip since issue 1. That has not changed. Skip. And Peter?
Skip. A book about mutant culture is interesting, but it doesn't make it an X book. And now let's get to a slightly fuller discussion of Children of the Atom #4. All right, folks, we are here to get into a little more detail on our buy or skip decision on Children of the Atom #4. And to do that, we're going to go around and recap what our choice was and why we are giving that recommendation. So Children of the Atom #4, we're going to do a round of buy or skip, starting with Tyler.
Well, I mean, I did say buy and that we are this close. I'm this close to saying skip.
But why should people buy? You're the one who said buy it. They trust you, even though you're not a doctor. So why? Why is it a buy?
I find that it is, I still think that it is interesting in terms of how this kids are, trying to emulate the powers of mutants, because in this issue, it clearly establishes that none of them are mutants and they know it. So, I struggle to sort of like defend a little bit of the appropriation criticism, because I really don't think that they, as young kids, know that that is appropriation. And so I think that's the part which I'm willing to give them the benefit of doubt. And I feel like it is interesting enough to see where, how or if one of them actually end up being a mutant and what happens to the rest of the group.
All right. Now, Harry, you're buy on this. So you've got to defend that position. You can't just explain why people should skip it. Why should they keep buying it, at least this week?
Well, let me tell you, I don't really have that strong feelings. So basically, this is a tough issue to talk about because it really is just a progression of the issues that have come before it. And many of my thoughts are kind of the same, which is that this is just establishing human characters and getting deep into the nitty-gritty of the human drama. And this character, that the one focused on this issue, is different enough from the last 3. I don't think we should look past that. That is not the easiest thing to do, to make this whole batch of new characters all feel distinct and human enough with interesting enough backgrounds to kind of be spaced apart from one another. And it also is kind of just further developing things that we've talked about. Like, I think this book is starting to make more of, Ayala is saying more clearly that, characters like Buddy are not in the right here, or are clearly, murky enough that you shouldn't be, identifying or empathizing with her as much as the others in this book. Furthermore, I do enjoy, we've talked a little bit, but I do enjoy that the plot in this issue is, let's just do the thing that the X-Force terrorists did, but in a much dumber way, or it's like, we're just going to try to get mutant DNA through the portal. I thought that was kind of funny. It's like, you're kind of right. You just came about it in a much different way. But this is a middle of the road chapter of an interesting book that I am still into. Just the only last thing I would say is, I'm kind of starting to actually go towards y'all's side with the art. I don't think this is really great Paco Medina art. I think it's kind of flat, a little drab, and I think we're definitely missing something from the Chang issues. So this is a buy. Like, if you're in, I don't think anything in this issue would like get you out, but there have been better comics. Like, I won't, so just I'm still gonna hang tight and see where it goes. But if it gets worse or more boring, then yes, of course I'll drop it.
All right, Fariha, you are a skip. Let's hear a little bit more from you.
So I remember one of the last, previous episodes, you said that this book should be called Marvel Youths.
Youths. If you're from Philly, which you are now.
Yeah.
Youths.
Yeah, youths. Like that. The whole time I was reading it, that's the only thing that kept going in my mind. And in your voice, like, this should be called Youths. I have been like, I've been just like, as I'm reading through this, I've been kind of thinking like this whole thing, are they mutant, are they not, has been pushed way too long. There's like way too, for some bizarre reason, we're still following these kids. And it just, I don't find them charming. I don't find them interesting. And I keep on thinking that how interesting it would have been if instead of making it an X-Men adjacent book, they just made it sort of like Marvels by Kurt Busiek, which is about like humans in the Marvel universe. How it would have been if it was youths of Marvel universe and how they are connecting with all the different things. Like some of them could be about a Fantastic Four fan, some of them could be for like Avengers fan. I just keep on thinking about that, and I'm just not interested in them. I haven't been interested in them from the first. I was hoping and waiting for it to change, and it's not. It's just going in a weird tangent, and I'm like, I'm just done. I'm done.
I'm a skip, and it's really practical. And it has a lot to do with what we've been talking about for people who've been following along with our discussion on this. I think this issue makes it really clear that this is a book about the impact of mutant culture rather than mutants, right? Based on the spaceship reveal last issue, based on everything that's going on with these characters, maybe one or two of them are mutants, but they're mostly not. And I think if we're coming at it from a This Week in X perspective, like reading the X books, I just don't think it matters that this is an X book that's like on the schedule at the back of the book. It's just going to I think it's going to frustrate a lot of people to keep reading this when it's not an X book in that it's about Krakoa and it's about the stem of everything happening with mutants right now. I think this book would be a lot more successful if it wasn't in the mutant line and it just happened to be that these characters were really into mutants in the way that many characters and a lot of these young character books are into a lot of other characters. Because honestly, you can make the argument like mutants are inspiring them to be different or whatever, but like how much is that really the case in this issue other than the fact that they're already excited about mutants? Why? Because a Dazzler vinyl is in a crate because he's got Wolverine posters on the wall. I mean, this doesn't feel any more or less about mutants than Ms. Marvel writing Wolverine into her fanfic. And so to me, it kind of just feels, it's a Champions book. Like just let it be an arc in Champions and let that wider Marvel world connect back to the X-Men. Unless the spaceship is some Shi'ar ship or their brood or whatever, which in which case I think that's dumb. I just don't think that I just don't think it's an X book. Now, if I can take off, as we said last episode, my X glasses and look at it, would I still say skip? Yeah, because it's not a super good kid comic. It's got really good, and I don't mean for kids. I mean about younger characters. It's got really good representation. I think Ayla has their voices down really well, but I think this Paco Medina art is completely unspectacular. It makes it feel totally beige and unremarkable. And honestly, I think Danny Lore is just writing a circle around this on Champions right now. So like not that you can only have one, but seeing how well Champions is dealing with really similar things. And if we look at all those books that came out of Outlawed, I mean, the Power Pack book by Ryan North was one of my favorite comics of this year so far. Power Pack, one of my favorite comics of this year. Marvel has a high pedigree for these books to do well and to be good and compelling. And I just don't think that this one clears the bar. So I'm gonna skip on it as an X book. And I think if you're looking around the rest of the Marvel universe for like I like young characters books, I'm gonna recommend Champions, Strange Academy, and Power Pack before I'm gonna recommend this. It's at the bottom of my ranks. So that's a skip.
It definitely, now that we're kind of getting further along, it definitely feels like, yes, like, you could just make this a random Champions thing or call it Marvel Youths or what have you.
Youths.
But, from a Youths
of Marvel.
From a, it seems more obvious that this is very clearly like the marketing angle of making them be like, making them appear as mutants for like that first issue kind of sale thing was why they got put in this line, which makes sense from a financial point of view, but maybe not a narrative point of view. So I agree. But also the story's not done, so who knows?
If I remember correctly, I think this idea was pitched by one of the ex-office assistant editor or something, right?
Right. So, I don't think what I'm debating, and I want to be clear because people on Twitter definitely misunderstood me. Yeah. I'm not debating if we should make some decision that they don't get to count this as an X book or like it should be excommunicated from the X office or it shouldn't be on the schedule at the back of the books. Like I'm not debating reality. Clearly it was pitched as an X book. Clearly it's on the schedule. I'm just saying I don't think it's that effective as an X-Men
book.
That's fair. I mean I agree with that part. And I think the thing is that like even the X-Men appearances here are kind of like random and
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Wasn't
either.
Strong Guy there for a second?
Um,
Or
Maggot.
someone that looked a lot. Was that Maggot? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was. Never mind. I got mixed up.
That's Maggot.
I still like the human.
He's got the
drama
Coke
enough.
bottle glasses. That's why.
Yeah,
he's strong.
I still think that in fairness, I haven't read most of those books you mentioned, Peter, but I think the human drama here is still fairly solid. I've been pretty impressed with just how different all of these kids are in relation to one another. But
the voices I think the voices is
Yeah.
definitely very well written here.
I think that's the most
They
important thing.
they did
but-
a really good job of giving very distinct voices to each of the characters.
yeah.
The thing is that, like, Buddy started off as someone whom I thought would be a better person than
You're really coming down hard against Buddy today.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
am.
the book is very now just like vocalizing, like, hey, you're not doing this for the right reasons. This
yeah,
has
in
become,
2 issues in a row, and
yeah,
not realizing that. I think that's the problem too. She, like Buddy,
Yeah.
she doesn't realize that she was doing something really wrong here.
and I think that's the nuance and the context that makes this still an intriguing read for me. Seeing where the writer is falling on all these characters and where they're falling on
Mhm.
this little journey of theirs. So I think it's interesting.
I guess for me, part of it is like, so this is 4 issues in a row that had a different focus character. And we all knew that was the setup after the second one. It was going to keep happening.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I just don't think that this home life story works for me as well as the prior 3. Like,
I agree.
and
I
I've
agree.
got divorced parents and I have a multiracial family. So like, much like I've identified with many of the other ones, you would think that maybe this one would hit for me, but it just felt like a little bit like, okay, here's another episode of this new Disney show about these kids. Like, it just didn't really have the level of like veracity for this character
I
that
agree.
the previous ones had.
Mhm.
And I think the first 2, especially with Buddy and Gabe, like I just was like, I love these people. I'm
Yeah.
into it. I feel like I'm part of their world. I get them. And like I don't feel like I get either of these the brothers anymore
Yeah.
now that I've read this one. So I think that's
Well-
part of what's leaving me like a little
Well,
like,
no.
oh, because
I'm
it
not
just
sure
did not
what's going
hit.
to write about next issue. Next issue is about JJ and his
The kid, yeah.
youngest one among the 5. And
I
It's gonna be
like
kind of
wonder
like
how-
JJ's version of that. It's like Parent
Maybe.
Trap. It's gonna be JJ's version of what it's like to be the younger brother in that situation and be kind of brought
Yeah.
along to this new.
No,
Could be.
I think I don't think this is. I think this is definitely the weakest of the characters' kind of interior kind of stories so far. But I do like that, even though he is kind of a jerk to JJ, it is shown not like in a super heavy-handed way, but pretty effectively that like he will care for the people
He takes
closest to
care.
him if
Yeah.
he lets them in. And I don't think it's played super strong. I do think it's a little. It's left more for the audience to kind of read into, kind of like in a better way. So I liked that, but this is definitely the weakest of the 4. But okay, that it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen to one of them. So like, I wasn't really.
Not
getting,
everyone can be the
like-
best one. But I also think
Yes,
that
you
in
know.
addition to the art divide that's come with 3 and 4, it's also like
Mhm.
we've gotten farther away from some of the X-Men connection a little bit.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, they all show up at the end here, but I think that part of what was making it interesting was this idea that like the X-Men had their eye on them and the X-Men had opinions about this and they were out kind of superheroing, but like that's kind of fallen away a little bit too, because the last one was mostly the dinner scene. And then this one, the X-Men do have to react, but it's kind of like at the last moment. I think,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to just interrogate, like, I don't think it's fair for me to just get on here and be like, I hate this, blah, blah, blah. Just like I don't think it's fair for Fariha to either. And I think it's useful when we try to interrogate that a little bit. So if I'm like asking myself why, I think that this family story felt a little bit repetitive. I think I'm missing the Krakoan perspective in this
Mhm.
one. And I think, and also I'm unimpressed with this artwork.
I can't imagine we're not heading towards that. I'll say I cannot. This can't be an ongoing, right? This doesn't.
They've
feel like an
solicited through
ongoing-
6, right? You're my friends who do solicit watching. You tell
Sorry,
me.
Do you remember? I don't remember in the last.
I don't
few
remember it
episodes.
saying that 6 is the last issue. That's the thing.
Did it say that?
No,
No,
did
it
not.
didn't.
Oh,
It did not. So
I just I would think this will work better as a finite story. That's just me, Wishcast. I mean, who knows? But you know, I can't. I think we're headed towards the big reveal that they're not mutants. And I think that'll be. I truly think that'll decide how I feel about the series as a whole,
Mhm.
because it's utilized kind of mystery and slow developments pretty well at this point. But obviously, eventually, you got to pay that off.
yeah.
Well,
So-
and I don't want I don't want a lack of enthusiasm about this, mine or anyone else's, to take away from us the ability to get other New Mutants introduced into this line. I think it's good to bring in new characters to Krakoa, to bring in new perspectives, to bring in new identities and representation on the page. And I guess I just have a little bit of a fear, partially for myself, but partially because I see I'm not the only one receiving it this way, that people are now going to be really cynical if there's any book that introduces any new mutant character, where it's going to be like, Children of the Atoms did that and they weren't even mutants, you know? Like, I kind of would be more excited if it did turn out that they were mutant. Maybe the technology is working for them all because they all are mutants, right? I mean, that's still a card that could be flipped on the table. And I think that ultimately maybe makes this a better book. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, we talk about a lot of these, and I feel like this is still one of like the most interesting books and one of the most interesting kind of discussions that we all have each month. So like,
it really gets the most discussion from us.
I do. I find it like, you know, there's nothing really like this in the line, for better or worse. Somewhere Fariha just got a nosebleed. She doesn't know why, but like, you know, like I think that's kind of fun, and you know, maybe just up the art a bit, y'all.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Well, Tyler, is there anything else that we needed to pay close attention to in this?
No, I don't see anything that, you know, no.
The only thing I'll add, because I noticed some people on Twitter and myself too be a little confused, is so Kamala's Law and Cradle still is happening after Outlawed. It's not being legislated as much as it was, and there's not these like hero re-education facilities because they kind of exposed that at the end of Outlawed. But we have seen in other titles that superhero kids still need to have some amount of mentorship. Kamala is still seen as this very like hot button big get to have speak out because everybody knows the law was about her. So this whole kind of, even though it's not totally a part of Outlawed, and maybe I would surmise that the script was retooled a little bit to make it work even post Outlawed, like that status quo of distrust of young heroes is still present in the Marvel universe. So even though this was supposed to come out a year ago, it kind of still plays in the current day, congruous to the Gala stuff.
Just speaking as someone who hasn't read any of that, it sounds like fan fiction. Like I don't mean that in a mean way. I really just like it just seems like something that's gonna get retconned out within like a year and a half.
Yeah, it's a minor story. It's a shame because it was meant to be this very cool kind of like kid Civil War, children's crusade kind of thing that a lot of books were going to participate in. Miles had stuff about it. Kamala had stuff about it. They did Power Pack. There was going to have this. I think that New Warriors series that got totally canned was going to be a part of it. And it's a shame because it kind of just turned into like a little fizzle, but you can't control it. All right, y'all. That is the end of our discussion of Children of the Atom #4. I thank you for being a part of this buy or skip. It turns out that the panel is split, much to my surprise, between buy and skip. So we do not have an official recommendation for you. Use your own judgment, as you always should anyway. So thank you for being a part of This Week in X. We get together and talk about X-Men comics every week. So if you're looking for the other X-Men comics in the line, official or not, they are elsewhere on the channel. And Fariha, why do we get together and do this every week? Fariha, has Fariha looped her video?
She got out.
Fariha escaped. Fariha slipped away.
That
she pulled one over us.
Wow. Well, she was uncharacteristically quiet.
I thought she was so angry that she didn't say anything. She didn't want to say anything.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Where is she?
Hopefully at the gala. Yeah. So Harry, why is it that we get together and do this every week?
X-Men is better when most of us read it together.
Right. So for those of you who haven't slipped away in the night, usually the retention statistics on YouTube are not about which of the hosts have slipped away. For those of you who have stuck with us, thank you so much. Leave a comment. Is this a buy or a skip for you? Do you wish you had skipped it if you bought it? If you didn't buy it, do you wish that you had based on this discussion? And we will see you again next time here on This Week in X. And until we do, we hope that you are well.
Bye.